All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a pretty wild, really unconventional theory that kind of asks us to rethink something we take for granted every single day, the way the sun moves across our sky. It's a concept they call the cosmic clock, and believe me, it offers a totally unique perspective on our relationship with the sun. So the whole theory really boils down to this one simple question. What if the sun's movement isn't about physical distance at all? What if it's more like we're watching the hand on a giant celestial clock? It sounds simple, right? But if this model is right, the implications are, well, they're pretty huge. And this is the core idea, the big metaphor. We're all watching the exact same cosmic timepiece. We're just looking at it from our own unique spots on the ground. This one single image is the key to how this theory tries to solve what it argues is a major astronomical puzzle. So yeah, this theory, the cosmic clock, it presents a really different answer to a basic observation. Why does the sun seem to move at the same steady speed for every single person on Earth, no matter where you are? The theory's answer starts by saying maybe our most basic assumptions are just wrong. Okay, so to get how this clock is supposed to work, we first need to look at its parts. And, this isn't your grandfather's cuckoo clock. Its components are a little more cosmic. Let's break down the two main elements, the sun itself and the path it supposedly travels. So this is a really crucial point. The theory completely redefines what the sun is. It says it's not some massive physical ball of fire millions and millions of miles away. No, instead, it's proposed to be a source of pure plasma, and that acts as the light for our world. This idea is a fundamental piece of the whole puzzle. And here's the second piece. This plasma sun is said to orbit something called the creation center, which is described as a central black hole located right above the Arctic. And it keeps a constant distance as it moves around it. So in our clock analogy, you've now got the center pin of the clock, and you have the light source acting as the hand. Okay, so we have the parts of the clock laid out, but how do we actually read the time? How do we perceive its movement? This is where the theory takes another really interesting turn, kind of moving away from classical physics and more into the realm of frequency and even consciousness. This is the big leap of faith for this theory. It's suggesting that the light we see isn't a physical thing that has to travel an insane distance just to hit our eyes. So if that's not what's happening, then what in the world are we experiencing when we look up at the sun? And here's where things get really different from mainstream science. Instead of light physically traveling all that way, this theory argues for something more direct, something instantaneous, a frequency connection. So think of it less like seeing a faraway object and more like being perfectly tuned in to a radio signal. Now, the implications of this idea are just massive. If our perception is truly based on a constant frequency, then where we are physically and how far we are from the sun, it all becomes completely irrelevant. We're simply tuned in to the signal, and that signal is identical for everyone on the network, so to speak. So how do all these pieces, the plasma sun, the central circuit, this frequency connection, how do they actually explain the sun's steady speed? Well, they all combine to create what the theory calls the clock hand effect. Okay, so here's how it's all supposed to work. We, the people watching, are positioned near the center of this huge cosmic clock. The plasma sun is the single clock hand, and that hand just sweeps around its circuit at a constant angular speed. From our perspective, a hand moving on a clock face always appears to move at the same steady rate. And that steady rate is measured as 15 degrees per hour. But according to this theory, that number doesn't represent a physical speed through space, not at all. Instead, it represents the constant frequency of our connection. It's the rate at which our perception of the sun changes as it circles the creation center. So the whole point really comes down to this distinction. We aren't measuring how fast some object is physically moving from point A to point B. We are just observing the steady, consistent angular turn of a clock hand, all through our direct frequency connection. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, according to this theory, we are all perfectly synchronized to the sun, and because of that, to each other. Proponents say this model solves some major observational problems in a surprisingly elegant way. By proposing this whole frequency connection idea, the theory claims it simplifies everything. Suddenly, you don't need complex math to account for distance or viewing angles. There are no inconsistencies because everyone is getting the exact same signal from the exact same source. We're all on the same time.
And ultimately, the theory leaves us with this really powerful idea that we're all synchronized to the same cosmic clock. And this isn't just about astronomy. It's about a shared experience of reality, one that's governed by a single celestial timepiece.
And that leaves us with one last big question. If our perception of something as fundamental as the sun could be dictated not by physical distance, but by a shared frequency, what does that imply about our shared reality? It's a really fascinating thought that goes way beyond astronomy and deep into the very nature of how we experience the world together.